Welcome to Putty and Paint. Today we're taking on this cluttered mess and building a custom cabinet to hide it all. Let's go! So our garage has always been an unfinished garage and it has always bothered me. Now this corner in particular right here bothered me the worst because every time I walked into the house from the garage I had to stare at that mess. So earlier in the week I said, you know what, that's enough of this, let's get after it. I want to get this fixed. So I started by stripping down everything and getting all the way down to the bare bones. The sheetrock's off, all the nails. I cut out some low voltage wiring at the top and cleared it all the way out to start the process. Alright, as you can see I got it all cleared out. Now we're going to be working on the insulating part of this whole project. So there is a thin layer of bricking that goes around the entirety of my house. It's a wainscot. And they did not insulate it very well around the top of that before they went onto the MDF siding. They actually didn't insulate it at all. I can come through here at nighttime and I can see light from outside. So I'm going to insulate that with some spray foam, and then I'm going to put up some rolled insulation, and then we're going to get onto sheetrock. So now this went pretty smooth, but I ended up goofing a little bit right up there. I ended up shoving the nozzle too far in, and when it expanded it went outside, which was fantastic. So rolled insulation comes in 8-foot sections that have a pre-cut but not cut all the way through. So I cut them all the way through, got them up on the wall, started at the top, and slowly worked it down, tacking and overlaying each one as I went down. Ignore that. It did get tight in a few places where it wasn't fully extended over, and I'm assuming that that's because the 2x4s weren't positioned where they were supposed to be, as with the rest of my house. So the home is over 40 years old, so after I was done stapling, I had to come back and hammer them all in because the wood was too dense. It is 48 on center, so I'm going to be able to throw up a full sheet and not have to worry about doing more than one. So, bam, baby, that worked out great. It was a 4-foot section, obviously 8 feet tall, and I was able to just drop in one full sheet of sheetrock, which made my day. I didn't have to go through and measure and cut. So one-man show. I mean, I'm not a sheetrock layer, I'm not none of that, so it did take me a minute to get it all screwed down, which was fine, you know. Slow and steady wins the race, I guess. Alright, so another side effect of an existing old home is that nothing is square. I end up with this massive gap from top to about midway, and then it closes up to there. So if you go to Home Depot, right next to where the sheetrock's at, you'll find these little stickers that are stuck between the units of sheetrock, and they throw these away. Now, and since I only needed a sliver, I grabbed this when I went back to get the mud because I freaking forgot it, which was awesome. So, killed two birds with one stone, and I was able to cut it down to a very thin slice, which is all I needed. And it was free, and like I always say, if it's free, it's for me. So now you can see that the existing sheetrock that's in the garage, 40 years old, unpainted, it looked pretty ratty, which only made me feel better about doing this. Alright, now that I've slapped some mud up in the corner, we're going to be taping it. So what you do is you take your standard tape, and you fold it right in the center, just like this. Nice little V all the way down. And then you press it into the mud into your corner, and then you mud over it. So if you're thinking about trying one of these particular projects where it involves sheetrock in your home and your home is older, you're going to find that nothing is straight, like I've said many times. And so in this particular situation, I had to float this out about 6 inches, which realistically isn't terrible. I've seen it and done it where it's like 18 inches wide, if not more. And so this wasn't too terrible, even though it was that far out of whack. So the general idea is just to float it out, put it on there nice and thick, make sure that you no longer see your tape that you're covering. That tape is there just for structural support. Under the mud, you're going to float over the top of it. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to use this bad boy right here. You're going to come right on up and you're going to smooth it out. And realistically, if you can get it on the first pass, good for you. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 passes to make sure that you have enough mud in that corner. Also, pay attention to what mud you're getting. I got the wrong one, which I will find out the next day when it didn't dry. Alright, so I left it overnight last night and it got down into the 30s, so it was too cold for the mud to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and shift gears and I'm going to move over to building the cabinet. It's going to be right around 45 inches wide, the full cabinet. and I'm going all the way to the ceiling, 8 feet tall. I need all the space I can get. And there is going to be a broom closet on the side of one side, so that way I can stop having my brooms and mops and all this other stuff just sitting there in the garage. That drives me crazy. And then the rest of it will be outside storage. So let's get after it. So anytime I'm making cabinets, I start by breaking down the material. And this particular material here, I'm cutting down to 21 inches, which is a ½ inch larger than what is needed. And the reason is I take it and I put it on my table saw and I clean up the edge that I cut with the circular saw. So I've used a closet door for many years as a shelf when I put up my sawhorses, and I also use it when I'm cutting plywood. So I just lay it down. Some people use foam board from Home Depot, which is fine. Both work great. The foam board would probably be a little better if I'm being honest. But so I break it all down, get it to the sizes that I want. I cut it over a little bit because I wanted to come back and clean up the edge that I used the circular saw to cut. It's never a perfect cut, so I wanted to come back and make sure I cleaned up all my edges, which you see me doing here. So I did want to take a minute to point something out that a lot of people don't think about, and it's where you source your wood from. If you have the option to go to a local distributor, not a box store, you know, something close by, they say, hey, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I should have done that. I went to Home Depot and got some wood from like Brazil or something, God knows, China, who knows. But see, this is the stuff you get. That is standing up against the bottom, and it bows. And if I didn't have a bunch of shelves tying this together, I would not have gotten this there. See, the problem is the style of doors that I made for that one over there, they got 90-pound clasps on them to keep the doors closed because of this. And I am going to replace those doors when I make those doors. So yeah, this is crazy. If you can, go somewhere else. So we got all the tops and bottoms ready to go, and the sides, tops, bottoms, and sides. Okay, ready. They're all cut out and ready to go. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting in a series of rabbits, or dados actually, and a rabbit in the back. But I'm going to be putting in a series of dados to hold the shelves on the left and right sides of the cabinet. And this is going to be kind of tricky because there's going to be a broom closet kind of thing that goes from about a third the way up, where I won't be putting dados on the outside one, but I will be putting them on the inside one. So I'm going to go up on this one. This is the left side, so we're going to go up and then a shelf and then another shelf, and then that's where that one stops. Then the other one on the right will get the full shabam, and then the divider will get the remaining shelvings all the way up, the remaining dados. So this is going to be kind of a trick. But right now what I'm going to do is, because I have a dado bit that has a bearing, I'm going to make a kind of like a temporary jig. This will be the outside stop. Then there's going to be another one that goes under the plywood, and that's what I'll hold the clamp on with. And then I'll be able to run my router right up the edge and give me a nice clean line on every line. But I do need to clean these up because the edges are a little janky. These are the cutoffs on the factory side, and I don't want to fuss with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip them down and clean them up, and then I'm gonna make the other one. It only take like 5 minutes.
So I'm about to start ripping the pine boards for the face frame of the cabinet. Now, when you get them from the store, this time I just said screw it and got them from Home Depot. Normally I don't do that because they're so expensive in comparison to my lumber yard that's about 40 minutes away. But when you get them, they always come with a kind of knocked up rough edge. So I'm gonna go with 2-inch wide face frame on this cabinet. But what I like to start off doing is cutting the first cut at 2 1/8, and then I'll flip it around and cut off the rough edge and make it down to 2 inches. But always for me, the first cut's always 2 1/8 or 1/8 over, basically, to give me a blade width to cut off the edge so it's clean. Oh yeah, it's been a few days and I've cleared the stash. I'm gonna have to let it grow back, it's weird. Anyway, so holding the doors together, half inch brad nails. I pipe clamped them together and then I used brad nails in the corners to secure the rail and stile, so that way I can quickly move on without having to let it sit there and glue up. I have like 10 pipe clamps of varying sizes, but the 2 that were used most, that's all I got on those sizes. So I didn't want to have a stack of cabinets sitting there for 2 or 3 hours, so I went the quick route, brad nails. A little putty afterwards, you know, that's why we're called putty and paint. A little putty afterwards, you won't even notice. So yeah, this is a little easy trick, bradding them up in the corners, and you're done. Shabam, baby. Shabam.
A little bit of putty and paint, we're done.
I think it came out sweet. I didn't go crazy with the finish, and the reason is it's in the garage. So I assembled it. I did a quick lacquer spray just to seal it. I mean, if I was going for baby butt smooth, I mean, I would have took the doors off, I would have sprayed the cabinet, I would have steel wool the cabinet. The one thing about a lacquer finish is that it dries in like 2 minutes. You know what I mean? So it dries, you sand it, you spray it, it dries, you sand it, you spray it, and then you spray it after you spray it that last time, you steel wool it, slick as silk. But again, it's in the garage, and I just need to look pretty, not feel pretty. You know, rough hands, rough doors, it's all good. So anyway, there you go. I hope you guys liked it. Came out pretty sweet. I painted the door too because I couldn't have this nice looking thing next to that dirty looking thing. So I painted the door Finished painting where Jacob left off the other day, helping me out on this one. And yeah, came out sweet. Hopefully we'll get to finishing off this garage here very shortly. I'm hoping anyway, but we'll see. All right, till next time, guys. Peace out.